capitalism. If you've listened to some other videos this week, you know I was in a debate with a gentleman on Facebook, for a running debate for a few days now. The guy is a total socialist. He's a total socialist and doesn't believe in anything I believe in, which is fine. He can believe what he wants, but he can't turn around without proof and say that what I believe in is wrong. And one example he brought up was Chile, the country of Chile. And he says it's an abject failure. Everybody you talk to, it's an abject failure. And I gave him some links, and some of these links had other links in them on reports, GDP of Chile, medium incomes, household incomes, the whole 9 yards. And every economic indicator that you would normally use to say that a country was prospering, Chile has them in spades. I mean, they really have them. So I'm like, well, where's this thing coming from? Where's this idea that Chile is a mess, right? Well, I really got to start digging into it, and lo and behold, I found some stories that were from foreign correspondence, foreign papers and stuff like that, and it kicked back up a memory of mine. It's not that the people don't like what's happening in Chile. It's the government workers, and it's the socialists that still live in Chile, because the government, instead of going to an undefined pension, which we're having a pension crisis here in America, all the government workers, everything was reinvested into defined retirement plans like 401ks or 403s, okay, 401s or 403s. So they're putting it into defined. That way there isn't going to be there isn't going to be any pension bubble coming due in the years to come. They went to a lot of free market things, free market healthcare, free market economy, things like that. And these are things that socialists just don't like. And so one of the things that they say is that capitalism fails. You know, wherever capitalism tries, it fails. No, capitalism doesn't fail. It's the people not protecting capitalism and allowing socialist, Marxist, communists to come in and ruin it for everybody else. That's what happens to capitalism. Capitalism, free market capitalism, the free exchange of ideas, materials between people, the free ability of people to make contracts with each other, and the country's ability to have the rule of law to protect those contracts and to protect the people when they're freely exchanging goods and services. That's free market capitalism. What happens is you have these socialists out there that think that these capitalists are having an advantage, or that not enough money is being spent on the poor, or we're making the poor work. How dare we make the poor work, especially when they're able to work? How dare we do that? We're not compassionate. And yet they want to redistribute all that wealth and put themselves, and this is the problem with socialism, communism. Somebody always has to be in power, and they're hoping. I've talked to too many socialists out there, Marxists out there, that are megalomaniacs. They want to dictate to people how they feel, how they think, how they spend their money, how they work, all the whole yards. They're total totalitarian authoritarians, if I can use that word. So I have this article from FEE.org. Now, Foundation for Economic Education, they're libertarian. They do believe in Austrian economics, and they believe in liberty and freedom. And this gentleman I was having this discussion with, you can't read them. You can't trust these sources. They're too libertarian. How dare you do that? And again, these sources are well researched, they're well documented, and they're well thought out. And this article here, 4 Common Capitalism Myths Debunked, by James Davenport. And this was posted on the 9th of this month. One of the most disappointing things I face in a college, I'll tell you what, let me get over here so I can actually read it up here and you can see it. And follow along. I can almost do a bouncing ball with my mouse, right? One of the most disappointing things I face as a college professor is the lack of understanding most students have regarding capitalism. The simple fact is, despite the importance of our daily lives, relatively few people have a strong grasp of what causes economic growth and why markets are so central to continuously rising standards of living. In my teaching, I have encountered several myths or misconceptions about capitalism from students as well as individuals outside the classroom. Dispelling these myths has become a focus of much of my teaching. Now, before I get into the first one, if you're watching the video, you'll see this. First myth is capitalism was created. I always go back and make this argument to folks who, no such thing as free market capitalism in America. And the easiest example that I can use to debunk that way of thinking, of course, I have yet to have somebody that thinks that we don't have a free market in America change their mind, especially when I give them the grocery store example. I say, how many grocery stores you have in the area? They come back and they tell me. I says, you don't have to count every single one of them, but I've counted over 7 different, not including convenience stores, but 7 different grocery outlets that I can go to in this area. How many items do they have on hand? Well, your bigger grocery stores, some of your super grocery stores, Wise Markets has them, Giant Groceries in our area, they have them. They have upwards of 30,000 different items in their store. You can go in a store and you can find many different brands and of the same, like corn. Might be a dozen different brands of canned corn or frozen corn, whatever it is. That's free market because you choose. You go in the store and you choose which items you're gonna take. It's not made up for you. In a communist country, you'd only have one choice of corn, one choice of potatoes. You wouldn't have the choices you have here. You really wouldn't. That's because of the free market. You have these choices. How many gas stations can you go to? How many shoe stores can you go to? How many places can you buy clothing? How many different places can you buy tires for your car? And the list goes on and on and on. And when we get done with the conversation, it's like we never talked. It's like I might as well be talking to that wall in front of me, in front of my desk here. Or I might as well be talking to the great John Wayne desk because it's not going to answer me. And that's always been a sticking point with me, that these folks, when you show them objective facts and examples of the free market, they don't want to get out of their narrative echo chamber. Now, hopefully, maybe somewhere down the road they'll think about it. I planted the seed, as it were, like the gospel. You plant the seed of the gospel, and maybe somewhere down the road someone will water it, and it'll grow. So hopefully that's the case with some of these folks. At least I'm hoping it is. Capitalism was created was the first myth. Because socialists, Marxists, communists, they're all central planners. And they think economies have to be created. And this is one of the most, according to the author here, James, one of the most pervasive misunderstandings about capitalism is the idea that it was created by someone. Some of this can be attributed to the language used to describe Adam Smith's role in explaining the market process. The common reference to Smith as the father of modern economics can lead people to assume that he in some way created the market system. It is also not unreasonable to conclude that since socialism is generally reliant on planning, many would assume that capitalism is as well. Now let me stop the reading here. I've read a bunch of different chapters. I haven't read the whole book out of The Wealth of Nations by Adam Smith. And I would not call him the father of modern economics. I would call him possibly the father of economic thought. And basically in the Wealth of Nations, he went through and explained why he thought the way he did about economics. And it was something he discovered. He didn't create it. Markets arise, let me go on reading here. Markets arise out of human qualities. However, as Frederick Hayek explained, the market system is not really created as much as it is a system that evolves out of the human interaction and discovery. Similar to language, the market economy was not created by a single individual or group, but evolved over a long period based on the interactions of many people. The rules and institutions which support the market economy arose from those interactions. And folks, let me stop the reading here again. That's what central planners, that's what socialists, Marxists, communists, globalists, big government Democrats, big government regressives out there do not like about the free market, because you can't control it. There's no way you can control it. Myth number 2, capitalism creates poverty. This is one of the biggest myths, and this is one I hear all the time from my liberal friends out there, my regressive liberal friends. This may be the most pernicious of all the misunderstandings I encounter regarding markets. The idea that absent market capitalism would create greater shared wealth within society continues to permeate the thinking of a great deal many people. This is despite mounting evidence that as markets are used by more and more countries, global poverty is steadily decreasing. All developed countries have market-based economies. Importantly, the evidence is clear that this decline in poverty has happened as countries have come to embrace the market capitalism as a way forward, especially China and India, as other countries see the success of these two previously poor countries and begin following their lead. We can expect to see poverty in the rest of the developing world significantly reduce as well. In The Wealth of Nations, Adam Smith explained how markets, by continuously expanding the range of goods and services to an ever-increasing number of people, would produce what he called universal opulence. However, since Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels first launched their frontal assault on capitalism, many intellectuals and even politicians have embraced the idea that capitalism causes poverty, or at least prevents people from escaping it, and more disturbingly, that socialism leads to greater prosperity for the masses. And again, this is something I deal with almost on a daily basis when I talk to people on social media. Well, capitalism causes it. No. Socialism causes poverty. Because what happens when you control everything, when the government controls everything, there's only one pie. They're not going to let it grow and grow out of their reach or their control. So there's only one pie that can be shared with everybody. If there's only one pie and you're not making more pies, guess what? Some people are going to go hungry. And that's what socialism, Marxism, and communism does. Myth number 3, capitalism is about capital. The underlying foundation of capitalism is human freedom. And this is so important to understand about this, folks. It's freedom and liberties. The term capitalism was coined by Marx as a pejorative towards market-based economics. The term stuck and has led to some confusion about why markets actually work. As economic historian Deirdre McCloskey has noted, people at all times have attempted to amass capital, lands, resources, and money, but those collective attempts didn't lead to the type of society-wide economic growth we have since the 1800s. The underlying foundation of capitalism is human freedom. As Adam Smith recognized, when individuals are permitted to pursue their self-interest through markets, they are amazingly good at finding ways of bettering not only themselves but society as well. Equally important, as economist Joseph Schrumpner explained, out of this freedom arises the continuous process of improvement, and he called it creative destruction. So it's free. It's the freedom to interact with each other. It's the freedom to take what I make and maybe trade it for something you make, or sell it to somebody for some coin and use that coin that I got from them to buy something else. So free markets and capitalism lift all boats. I'm not out there trying to cheat somebody out of something. I'm not out there trying to keep a poor person poor. By me just sharing this video and these ideas about capitalism, hopefully I'm pointing them towards FEE.org to find out and learn more about this, but hopefully put a seed in their mind saying, you know what? I'm the one that's blocking my success. It's up to me to be a success, instead of trying to steal it through redistribution of wealth by the government. The fourth, capitalism creates winners and losers. No, it doesn't. I'm going to tell you that right now. But anyway, I'll let James explain this. While it is true some individuals and firms succeed while others do not in capitalism, this also is hardly an exclusive feature of markets. All economic systems have individuals who succeed and others who fail in one form or another. Over the long run, society is in its entirely benefits as a result of markets. However, capitalism is different in this regard in two important ways. First, capitalism increases the number of winners. Unlike other systems, capitalism reduces the barriers to entry into market activity for a larger number of individuals. The resulting competition provides greater opportunities for success, both great and small, than in any other system. Second, over the long run, society in its entirety benefits as a result of markets. This is because markets are mentioned above, bringing more goods and services within reach of more people than any other system. Markets also produce products and services that improve our lives in ways that our ancestors could never have dreamed. Just consider the things that exist today that didn't a mere 30 years ago. The simple fact is that today, even the poorest modern Americans have more goods and services at their disposal than kings and queens did just 200 years ago. So although individual firms may fail and individual people may not gain great wealth, the fact is that over the long run, we all win by enjoying better living standards than the previous generations. We need better education, and this is where I come in, and this is where I point people to these sources like Mises.org and FEE.org, okay? If the United States is going to continue to see its economy grow and the living standards of its citizens improve, it is important that students are taught the basics of the economic system that has allowed them to experience Adam Smith's universal opulence. Without this basic knowledge, they are easily led to believe the myths I mentioned and to vote for politicians and policies that will ultimately undermine the very system that has made their lives significantly better than their ancestors, as well as better than most of their contemporaries across the globe. And folks, this is important to understand, the education. I can't emphasize that enough. We need better educated people. They're not being educated in economics. They're not being educated in what freedom and liberty can do for them in an economic system. And it just amazes me how many educated, college-educated folks out there that are on the regressive left don't understand that. They look at everything as a zero-sum game. If you take from this person has to lose. And that's their mentality with everything. And capitalism isn't like that. You got one pie, you got more people to feed, guess what? Fire up the oven, get the rollers out, put a pie together, bake it, and we have a second pie. That's capitalism. That's how it's done, folks. That's really, really how it's done. I'm Dan Clements, your constitutional warrior. Remember, if you aim at nothing, you hit it every time. Have a great rest of the day, folks, and we'll see you in the next video.